Hi, my name's Baghouse. I'm the technical project manager here at BlastOne, and today we're going to be reviewing the daily maintenance tasks and the general operation of the 721 Vecloader. Before any operation of the Vecloader, I do a full and thorough walk around. And this includes from the tongue all the way to the aft of the machine. And the big things I look for are any loose nuts, bolts, hydraulic lines that are loose and leaking. And then I also check the drive belts from the PTO, from the engine to the engine belts and everything else. So what I'm going to start looking for here up front are any loose hydraulic lines on these jack stands, or these jacks. These are hydraulic driven jacks that has an auxiliary pump mounted to the legion motor. And so what I do is just I do a quick inspection to see if any of these are loose, any of the hydraulic lines are frayed or cracked or glazed. I also check for any loose hardware on these jacks because these jacks are going to bear the weight of the 721 when you go to set up the Baghouse. The next thing I do is I continue my walk around, make sure there's no significant oil leaks or hydraulic leaks on the bottom. So a quick way to do that is just to see if you have like a puddle building up. Luckily we don't have any puddles here. More hydraulic lines coming off here. And to work our way back, we want to make sure none of our gauges are cracked. We have the pressure gauge for the butterfly valve, the vacuum gauge, and the magnehelic gauge. There's a magnehelic gauge right here and also on the aft of the Baghouse. The next thing we want to do is we want to make sure all of our couplings and our hoses are very tight. The last thing we want is a loose hose and vacuuming and somebody to walk into the back here. On the way back, we want to make sure all of our tires, we have the right amount of pressures, so you can do a visual inspection or you can take a pressure test gauge to the tires and make sure there's adequate PSI in the tires. Next thing we want to do is continue our way back to the aft. The Baghouse is very pertinent to the operation of this machine. So before the operation for the start of the machine, we want to make sure we remove this inlet elbow and do a visual inspection of the inside of the unit. If there is significant wear, you don't want to use the unit because you can create wear within this area, also on this wear plate. Located on the unit, there are two drain daily ball valves. These ball valves are set at about 90 psi for the butterfly valve. The purpose of these ball valves is to drain any moisture within the system, so it's very pertinent at the end of the day that you crack these ball valves to get any moisture from your air system. Next thing we want to do is this gravity dump bore. Make sure the gravity dump bore has a gasket. Otherwise, you're going to have issues with your vacuum suction, and it's not going to perform with optimal performance. Walking around, we want to make sure each one of these jack legs has the pins in them, because when the Baghouse rises, we're going to be utilizing those pins to stance the entire unit on 4 of these jack legs. Another very important component of this machine is the emergency e-stop. So you have your e-stop switch and the pin that's going to run. You always want to run the length of your back hose if you're going to be operating it yourself down the line, or have somebody next to you with the e-stop down the line as well. Anytime you add another section of hose, you're going to hit the e-stop and turn the vacuum off and walk back, add your hose, and then add another 50 feet or so, or however long the run is, the electric line, to make sure your e-stop stays with you. This unit over here is the blower motor. This is what's going to create your vacuum. And on your inspection, your daily inspection checklist, you want to make sure that the sight glass is at least halfway full of oil. If it's too low, then you'll have to add the recommended oil at the recommended spec for how much oil it needs. Next, we have our clutch shaft PTO that is mounted to the engine. With these, we want to make sure these grease points on these are greased weekly. There are 17 grease points on a 2-axle unit and 23 grease points on the 3-axle units. Next thing we want to do is make sure we have adequate oil level. The 721s have a Don areas in them, so the oil gauge or oil dipstick is located on the left side of the motor, and all you got to do is turn it, twist it out, and check the oil level. We want to review the batteries. Make sure all the terminals in the batteries are secured. And then the last few things that we're going to take a look at is our depth level and also our air filters, our engine air filters. So there are two sets of filters in here. You're going to have your primary and your secondary filter. You're typically never going to change the secondary filter unless your primary filter has a hole and has some kind of blow-by or it's not installed correctly and that gets dirty. You typically want to take out the air filter, check it out, and blow it off if it's too dirty or install a new one. As far as the checklists go, on your general checklist, that's pretty much all you need to do. Just quick visuals and make sure you touch everything. And that's pretty much it as far as the general inspection, the daily inspections go.